staff, members and visitors to our council meeting. This is our council meeting for November. I'll start with our meeting with our webcasting of the meeting. This meeting will be recorded for placement on the council's website for the purpose of broadening knowledge and participation in council issues and demonstrating council commitment, openness and accountability. All speakers must ensure their comments are relevant to the issue at hand and to refrain from making personal comments or criticism or mentioning any private information. No other person are permitted to record this meeting unless specially authorised by council to do so. The opening prayer. We give thanks for the contribution by pioneers, early settlers, and for those who fought in the various wars for the fabric of Tenterfield community we have today. May the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be accepted in thy sight, O Lord. Amen. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land we are meeting on today. I would also like to pay respect for elders past, present and emerging in the Yuckabull, Kamilaroi and Bundjalung nations, and extend our respect to other Aboriginal people present. Councillors, we have an apology from Councillor Michael Petrie. Can I have a move in a seconder, please? Councillor Don Forbes, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Brian Murray, thank you. All in favour? Yeah, carried. Councillors, any disclosures of interest, declarations of interest? No? Councillors, we move on to our first item in our business plan, which is the confirmation of the previous minutes. The last meeting that we held, with someone who was in attendance at that, I'd like to move that they are a true and correct record, please. No one? Councillor Fraser, thank you. Second by Councillor Murray, thank you. All in favour? Against? Councillors, no tabling of documents. We do have an urgent late supplementary item. And I hope everyone's got it. It's an addendum item to do with our confidential councillors. It's two items there. They'll be EC 021/20 and EC 022/20. I'm moving a second to adopt that addendum, please. Councillor Greg Sawyer, thank you. Second by Councillor Gary Berry, and thank you. All in favour? Against? Go. Councillors, we do have a couple of things to do with our public access. Now we have Mr. Joe Smith from Anglian Bulls Mountain Bike. Joe's there online.
Good morning.
It's to do with the agenda item. So Joe, we'll have 5 minutes. Can you hear me, Joe?
I can. Can you hear me? Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Joe?
Yes, I can hear you.
Just can't hear you at the moment.
All right, just one moment.
Is he muted?
Yeah, I think it's your end.
There's a microphone with a strike through it down the bottom.
I can hear you.
You want to try again, Joe? We can't hear you.
Yes.
No?
I'm going to log out and I'll log back in.
Is it us again?
Give me one moment.
I can hear Joe, so it might be your end.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. I don't think I can hear you, perhaps. Can you hear me now? Can you hear now? Come on. Peter, I can hear you.
I wish you'd seen me. Did you want to deal with it at this meeting?
Just to get a
Yep, I'll just jump back. Sorry to interrupt.
Try it now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good morning.
Sorry. Good morning, Joe.
Can I hear you all? Good morning.
So what we've done, Joe, is we're now in our public access session, and over here, you have 5 minutes. I will give you a warning at 4 minutes. You got 1 minute to go.
Great. Thank you very much.
All the best.
Thank you very much. Would I please be enabled to share my screen? I've got a brief couple PowerPoint slides we'd like to share with you.
Yeah, it's working, it should be good.
So it says host disabled participant screen sharing, but I'm going to talk. If that's able, I'll put the PowerPoint on, but if it's not, I'm going to keep talking. Thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the ongoing support. We appreciated the participation of a couple of the councillors and staff at the workshops, community activation workshops we had earlier Monday of last week. Our position, I think, is going from strength to strength with Angry Bull Trails. We know we have a case for change. We believe that working together, we'll have an improved social and human capital and economic growth opportunity, improved health outcomes. What we've done, Angry Bull, I'm just going to try. I can share the screen. I'll do it now. Can you see the screen? Good morning. Can you see the
Keep
screen?
talking.
Great.
No, we can't at the moment. Yeah, now we're back on.
Start now.
You can now?
Yeah, mate.
Very good. A case for change we've outlined here. And just want to acknowledge Angry Bull Trails is limited. We've now registered as a not-for-profit with deductible gift recipient status. We're looking for improved social and human capital, economic growth, and improved health outcomes for the community. I think the community activation workshops last week were fantastic. There's some of the comments we picked up. I believe Donna Ward's here from the Tenterfield Star. The most exciting thing we've heard for Tenterfield in 20 years. Love it, brilliant, visionary. Ticks all the boxes, and I think that's an important statement. Ticks all the boxes. We'll get to grant funding in a moment. After the presentation, we had a survey. Community activation had 40 plus participants, mostly business leaders, and I think some landowners. 95% of those people felt fully informed on the project. 100% understood how the project blends commercial and social value, commercial opportunity for business, social value, disengaged youth, education and training opportunities. 100% fully understood the key points of the business case. From our perspective and the feedback we've received, the business case presented by myself, Vince Sherry, and David Thompson from RDA covered, encapsulated all the important points we wanted to identify. 96 believe this is the type of economic stimulus that Tenterfield requires. 94 believe the application for funds should be expedited. 89 believe that Tenterfield Shire Council should assist with funding from council budgets. And 91% believe that the project should be a priority. We believe that 100%. The challenge, as we know, we have an economy with little added value. Farming and agriculture has been the lifeblood of the community. We have a declining population, declining dependency ratio. Those over 65 needing under 65 to work and support them. Tenterfield has high levels of youth disengagement, socioeconomic hardships, and unfortunately, we rank 11th worst of 130 LGAs in this regard. We have an opportunity to create 25 new jobs during the construction phase, more jobs by the ancillary businesses. And our presentation clearly outlined a number of businesses, 20 some odd business and industries that'll be positively impacted by this project. 35,000 high value visitors per annum, and 80% of those are from outside Queensland, outside New South Wales. We're going to steal from and take visitors from Queensland. Steal is probably the wrong word, but we're going to borrow them for a little while, send them back home. Our strategic alliances have become a very powerful, and it just made us stronger. Backtracks. We've now been approved for $200,000 in funding to co-create a youth engagement and education and training program with Backtrack. So that's Sony Corporation is going to put $200,000 to set up this aspect of the Angry Bull project. We'd like to do that at the beginning of next year. Minter Ellison, of course, providing us with legal advice. Eunice Center, Griffith University Business School, a lot of intellectual firepower and knowledge there. We've started to have discussions with Moombaleen local Aboriginal land councils, and they've got some really good ideas of how we can work together for some initiative they're doing. We'd like to list Tenterfield Shire Council as one of our strategic alliances, and the local community. Those last two, we can't do it without. Strategic alignment, employment, tourism, infrastructure, economic transformation. These are ticking the boxes that we talked about earlier. All of these aspects are in these grant funding opportunities that we're currently pursuing. That includes the Bushfire Local Economic Recovery Plan Fund and the Building Better Regions. Round 5 will be open for applications in January of 2021. So our alignment's clearly identified in the business case: Northern New England Country Regional Economic Development Strategy, New England Regional Plan, Tenterfield Shire Council Strategic Plan, the Delivery Plan, and State Infrastructure Strategy. What we'd like to do from here, and we believe these are the critical next steps: do the trail mapping, design, and planning. A lot of things will come out of this. We'll be understanding where trails are, what the risks and issues are, fully engaged with the land managers. We now have New South Wales National Parks on board. We have Forestry Corporation, New South Wales on board. We are working, and it's a slow process with Crown Lands, but we believe that they'll be on board. Those are critical. The trail mapping is critical. It gets us to the next step. We want to be out in front of the grant funding when it's made available. Marketing and communication strategy, again, critical aspects. We know our customers and the people who visit. We need to reach out to them via online strategies. We also need to be able to communicate to the community as we continue with our stakeholder engagement. And we believe a website will be a very powerful tool for that. We continue with capital raising for the construction. $7.5 million grant application will go in on December 11th. RDA is convinced that this is one of the best projects they've seen through their office in 20 years. They approached Angry Bull to prepare the grant funding applications and work with us until this gets funded. So we're back to back 2 grant opportunities that will provide the 7.5 million. We are absolutely convinced that this project will happen. We do need your support. We'd like to ask council to consider and or reconsider making funding available so we can do the trail mapping. And also, I know this is over and above what was talked about in the last motion put forward. We'd like council to consider making funding available so we can start trail mapping and marketing communication strategy simultaneously. And we could start both of those now and have this work completed by end of February of 2021. And the grant funding decisions will happen in the first quarter of 2021. We will then proceed to construction.
Joe,
Yes, sir.
is there any more like vision to do with your presentation?
No, I'm going to stop sharing.
Beg your pardon?
No more visual. I'm going to stop.
Okay. So I have let you overrun because I did realise that to be fair, to get all what you want to present there. I'll give you 1 minute to wrap up if you wish.
Thank you very much. That's the presentation. That is where the project currently stands. We believe, and for any of you who participated in the workshops, we believe there's overwhelming support by the community. I know for a fact that there's widespread interest in this project from outside the community. Queenslanders. I've got a colleague up in Brisbane who's in Tenterfield this week looking to buy a $6.5 million property in the outskirts of town because he knows what's going to happen. This is happening, and we'd like to keep the momentum, keep moving forward. So we're asking for your support financially and a letter of support for the grant funding application. That concludes what I have to say. I'd love to answer questions. You've had the business case for a month. If there are any questions, let's go through those.
If there is, council, we'll allow a couple of questions to do with the presentation. Councillor Berry.
Joe, I've got a couple of concerns. You said you've got national parks and state forest on board. On board in what respect? And at what level of support have you got from them? Is it from senior management or just local management?
Senior management from the national parks. We already have in our possession a letter of support highlighting that we can access the national parks for mountain bike riding, and they will facilitate us in interconnectivity between other land holdings. That would lead me to Forestry Corporation New South Wales, Bunu Bunu State Forest, amongst other areas. They understand the importance of the connectivity between Basket Swamp and Bald Rock and Bunu Bunu, and they are contemplating, and we will have their letter of support by the end of this week to construct tracks, single track trails within that state forest.
That really worries me, Joe, with the state forest, because you've got a lot of dead trees out there, and they're going to be unsafe for a couple of decades. So I don't know where you're going to.
I'm sorry, Gary, I didn't hear that.
There's a lot of dead trees out in Bunu Bunu State Forest,
Yes, sir.
and you're going to have a job to run a safe trail there anyway.
I understand. With all the part of what we'd like to do is regenerative tourism, and we'd like to, with Backtracks, initially set up a team of people who come through where the trails will be, beautification and preparation for trail construction. That's an initiative we're working with Backtracks to get a crew up and running in early 2021. We understand the complexities. I've got 1,300 acres of dead and dangerous trees that I continue to clean up. We know what we do know and have firsthand experience of what lies ahead of us.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, councillor. I'll allow one more question. Councillor Tom Peters.
Thanks, Joe. I think your idea is really good. I'm right in favour of it, but something I can't understand is you've got $200,000 grant funding. Why do you need funding from council?
The $200,000 from Sony Corporation is for youth engagement and training program, a very critical aspect of the project. And that's what they dictate how they spend their money, of course, and that's what that'll be. It's complementary to what Angry Bull Trails are doing. And I'd venture to say if Angry Bull does not proceed, Backtracks will not proceed. Backtracks have identified that Angry Bull Trails will provide the long-term solution for employment. Backtracks' current model is youth engagement and training, and what they needed and why it's such a powerful relationship and partnership is they need the permanent solution for employment, and that's what Angry Bull Trails provides. So they will not let, that money is for youth engagement. That's their pet project.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Joe, thank you all. We'll finish now. I do wish you well in the future, and obviously council will be dealing with that report later in the agenda. So thanks very much, and all the best, mate.
Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your day.
Council will continue. Sorry. Council will continue on. There is no minute. We do have another public access session at 10 a.m. from Mr. Jeff Allen from Foresights to do with the auditor's report, the financial report. So we'll stop at 10 and do that, or we'll continue on. So, councillors, next item on our agenda is recommendations for items to be considered confidential. We do have confidential report, and there is 4 items. Be aware in your hard copy that the item EC 018/20 that now becomes part of the agenda that we've already adopted. So we'll be dealing with 4 items in that confidential. Can I have a move in a second that we deal with those in confidential, please? Councillor Sawyer, thank you. Second by Councillor Varian, thank you. All in favour? Again, carried. The council removed at the start of our report. They're in your hard copy, in your business paper. Page 25. It's item COM 32/20. Regional road transfer and road classification review. Can I have a move in a second to deal with this, please? Councillor Bob Reagan, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Sawyer, and thank you. And I will hand over to our engineering department to Smith. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Hill. Purpose of this report today is to advise council that while regional road transfer and road classification review, and to provide council with the information required to resolve to support joint priority submission, transfer of accountability to the Bruction Bay and New South Wales government and other regional roads to be considered to transfer what a Mount Road in the current flag. Nominations on all of these roads closed for priority and non-priority reclassification and or transfer closed in 2020. That was in fact the expression. Council nominated all of its regional roads within the budget. Bruxton Way being a priority to a council nomination including council partners in or in claims to the priority joint nominations is the council partner with council Mountain priority submission on a shortlisted basis for the following regional roads from the council support the submission. The Bruxton Way, Mount Lindsay Road and Clarence Way. The recommendations are there, councillors. There are two ways we're going about it. Ourselves as Penfield Shire Council will be making the joint submission on behalf of Inverell, Moore and Dwyer. The other recommendation is to support Pale Council as an effective council partner in the submission for Mount Lindsay Road and Clarence.
Question to the Fiona, Engineering Department to do with the report, Councillor. Councillor Berry.
It's not so much that report about the actual body of the report about the classification road.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's 9 years to get this up to the Mount Lindsay Road and back to the state. But I think there's 3 or 4 other roads we should be looking at too. One's Caldor Road, Queensland Road, and New South Wales Road. Now, Killaloe Road is a pretty major road, and White Swamp Road, and Bungaloo Falls Road actually is a cruising category. So it's especially private enterprise in the road, and it's too profitable. I think that gives you that's why
Thank you, Councillor. I commend you passion. So, because we're dealing with the 3, and in a perfect world, I'd love to get the 3 that we're dealing with up and we deal with that. My been supportive of our wonderful neighbours back to east with Kyle Shire, and thank Sharon for the good work that her and the team have done to keep pursuing this. This was mentioned at Country Mayors the other day. We had a presentation by Peter Duncan, and it's been a long, slow process, but we a role on this debate for our council. Any more questions to council, to Fiona or Engineering Department to deal with the report, councillors? Reports there, councillors, all happy to receive it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, on page 30 in your hard copy, item PC 016/20, the Andrew Bull Mountain business case 220. Could I remove in a second to deal with this, please? Councillor Bob Drayton, thank you. Second by Councillor McNish, I thank you. And I'll hand over to Councillor Representative. Thank you. CEO.
This is going to be a joint presentation. It's basically number 1 and number 2 are completely separate. Number 1 is about the finances as per Council's last resolution. Number 2 is about supporting the development of mountain biking in general. We've already had lots of requests for assistance with things like crown lands, access, you name it, native title, anything to do with public lands anywhere in our shire always ends up having something to do with council. And at the moment, under our operational plan and the administration's mandate, I haven't got a mandate to instruct staff to do anything because it's not on the 4-year delivery plan or 1-year operational plan. So also, for number 2, that will tie up, if council chooses that way, that will enable a resolution to be included in a letter back to Andrew Bull, so that when they seek grant funding, there's a council resolution to support the mountain biking in the shire. But it's got nothing to do with number 1. They couldn't be more separate if life depended on it. Because I can understand them being together, that they would appear to be the same, but they're not. But there's no other way we could have really written them. Harry, would you like to expand on that, or have I nailed it?
I think you nailed it. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think councils are fully aware of the project, that all the information that have several representations from the group, plus Joe this morning. The report, the business case is very well put together. RDA done an excellent job in that. And really the decision is from council as to how we want to support that.
Thanks for your comments, Harry, and Mr. CEO for making that clear. to do with the officer's recommendation, because we needed to speak to that. Councillor, just to do, before we go into Melody, with number 2, to do with an amendment. The council commits to supporting development of mountain biking within the Tenterfield Shire, within operational constraints. You happy to put that in there, in number 2? Yeah, I'll second. I'm not moving it, I'm wishing.
Could you repeat that,
So-
Mr. Mayor?
With number 2 in your report. Yep. That council commits to supporting the development of mountain biking within the Tenterfield Shire, within operational constraints. Meaning to do with the yeah, Mr. Say.
It's actually not so much budget because there's no monetary
Well, I thought-
consideration for number 2. We've been pretty busy with everything that's been going on with what's happened the last year, but in the last month, I've never seen staff busier. We've got grants coming out of our ears. We literally had a meeting in this this building, when was that, Kyle, last week, Friday, where we actually divvied up who was right down through the hierarchy, who was, I call it point, who was taking point for grants, because they are just coming every second day. We're getting grants, and we got one through Arts Northwest, I think. Gary, that we haven't even found out about that yet, but Harry was ringing up, what's her name? Caroline, to find out about that. That was a new one. And every one of the grants sucks an enormous amount of time out of the organisation, and they've all come at once. And that's been, so I asked Mr. Mayor this morning if he would mind adding that, because no matter how hard we try, we can only work within our means as an organisation. We haven't got any extra staff. We're not spending money on extra staff. We're stuck on 112 because that's what our budget, our operational budget can afford. We can't afford any more than that. And the other thing is, there's going to be humps and holidays. So at the moment, we're going through a big hump because the government's trying to give money out left, right, and centre. In 18 months, it's going to flatten off again. In actual fact, I think it'll go backwards when the government realises they've got no more money to give out. So I asked Mr. Mayor if he could add that. And the other thing is, and I was mentioning to the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, is since the 26th of last month, we've had 38 603 applications, and 603 is when land changes from one person to another, and we've got to change the rate base and all that stuff. Now, a 603 certificate takes a little bit over an hour for a staff member to do. So we've had 380 hours in 22 working days just on 603 certificates, which has taken basically 2 staff members out just to basically process the change of tenure of land from one person to another.
That's the problem, not just the certificate, but the change.
Yeah, it's a big job to do, and normally we get about 5 a month, and we've had 38 in the last 22 working days, which is, we don't know whether it's because people did not as many during COVID, and whether there's a big rush, or we don't know whether it's because people are moving their land around because of the higher land values or speedier sales because people are moving away from denser regional centres because of COVID. We don't know, but the fact of the matter is, Kai and I counted up yesterday, we've had 38. So as well as being really busy with grants, and I sent a graph out yesterday to all councillors, we've never constructed so much stuff in council's history in such a short time, and that's just about to get busier because we've still got about 30 k's of seal, roads to seal between now and June, or a bit less now. We've done about what, 14 or 15?
Oh, about.
Yeah.
And we just got the extension, so we just waited with the guidelines.
So the risk we've got, I don't want to appear to be Job's comforter, the risk is we can't stop doing what we're already delivering because we've been funded for that. We can't not apply for grants because we might miss out on opportunities. But we can't put a stranger on to do work that you need to have local knowledge with for the stuff that we do. Like, for example, if we put in for a grant for something that wasn't generic, I can't ring up someone from Kathmandu Council and say, oh, come up and do this grant for me, because every 5 minutes they're asking you questions about what they're going to put in the grant. So it's not something you can delegate to an external person. So the staff that's here, that've got the knowledge, have to be the ones that fill out the grant, which is why it's about 10 of us, including myself, doing grants at the moment.
Mr. So what I'll do,
Yeah,
We
so
just
we
let-
have to get that in.
that's fine. So councillors, the C is equated very well. We'll come back and deal with it. Just let this lay on the table for a little while. Mr. Jeff Allen's there and he's going to give us the presentation to deal with our auditor's report for 19 and 2019, 2020. So you happy there? You split, that's it? Okay, there we go. Are you there, Jeff?
Certainly am. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, welcome. We hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. So,
I'll put your PowerPoint presentation up. We're just going to have to talk me through which pages you want.
certainly. Thank you for that. So my name's Jeff Allen. I'm the partner at Forsyth responsible for the Tenterfield audit. We're the audit service providers for the audit office, and Chris Harper, the director at the audit office, sends his apologies today. So I'm presenting on his behalf. We've completed the audit for the year ended 30th of June 2020. We've issued unqualified audit reports on the general purpose, special purpose and the permissible income. So that means in our opinion that we believe the council has complied with the Local Government Act and that the accounts present fairly in all material respects and comply with accounting standards. If you could move, I've got a short presentation. If you can move on to the first slide, which is the income statement. So the income statement, council recorded a profit of some $6 million, which was down $4.3 million on the prior year. The key reasons for the decrease in profit were to do with the water augmentation during the drought and disaster recovery, and also an increase in depreciation that was related to revised replacement costs for bridges and roads. Rates were up by some 6.2%. That's mainly due to the rate pegging for the year, plus water charges. Grants were also up slightly, and that was due to grants for the drought, disaster recovery grants, which was offset by a decrease in transport grants as well. And you'll note that the net operating result before capital and capital grants and contributions was also down, and that relates to that expenditure on water and disaster recovery. If we could move on to the next slide. So the next slide is the statement of financial position. You'll note that your total current assets reduced slightly for the year. It was mainly due to a decrease in the investments and cash. That liabilities were up, and that's to do with increases in payables at year end, provisions, mainly a movement from non-current to current. And this year we've had the inclusion of contract assets and contract liabilities. The property, plant and equipment increased by some 2.3 million, and that was effectively renewal and additions of assets of some 17.7 million, offset by 2.8 in disposals, depreciation of 7.6 million, and some adjustments to the revaluation reserve of 5 million related to the School of Art and Mount Lindsay Road write-offs. If we can move on to the next slide. The next slide is the shows the cash and investments balance, and you'll note that the external restrictions, so this is cash where there's some sort of external requirement to spend that cash on a specific purpose has increased, and that's mainly due to unexpended grants. There's also water and sewer in there and domestic waste. The internal restrictions reduced, and the unrestricted cash was fairly low, so quite a tight cash position at year end. Moving on to the next slide. The ratios. So these are the standard ratios applied across all councils. You'll see that the first ratio, the operating performance ratio, has reduced, and that's to do with that reduction in profitability that council had due to drought and natural disasters, but it's still positive. It's still above the OLG benchmark, which is a good result. The second slide there is own sourced revenue, and you'll see it was similar, and that shows how much of your revenue is effectively non-grant revenue, and you're below the benchmark there, which shows that your dependence on grant funding for your operations. It's difficult for rural councils to actually meet that benchmark. The next ratio is your unrestricted current ratio. So this is trying to indicate for every dollar of current liability that you have, how many dollars unrestricted cash. And you'll see you've decreased from nearly $4 down to about 2, or just above 2. It's still above the benchmark of 1.5, but shows that reduction in cash and the reduction in unrestricted. Moving on to the next slide. The debt service cover ratio, you can see you're still ahead of the benchmark there. That's an indicator of council's ability to service the debt that they have. And you can see you're well above the benchmark there. The second graph there, the rates and annual charges outstanding percentage. And yours compared to other councils is not too bad. This is effectively saying of the rates and annual charges that you've levied, how much of them are outstanding at year end. So you can see you're up around about the 7.5%, nearly 8%. But some of our other rural councils are quite a lot higher than that due to the drought and cash flow issues within their communities. The last ratio there is the cash expense cover ratio. So this is effectively saying, how many months of expenditure does council have in their cash balance? And you can see, even though it's reduced, you're still well above the benchmark of 3 months cash. You've got over 8 months in cash. So that, again, that's a liquidity ratio. And that's the end. So if we can move on to the next slide. So that's the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank Paul Della and Igor and the team. It was a very smooth audit this year. The council's work papers and their accounts were extremely good, very good when I compare to the other councils this year. So I'll hand over to any questions on the audit.
Thanks, Jeff, for that presentation, and that you kept it in simple terms so we all can understand, which is great. Is there any questions to Jeff to do with the presentation which you had, councillors? No? Well, happy days. Paul, do you want to make a comment? You want position?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Jeff. Look, I think the ratios, while positive, have shown that it's going to decline over the profitability, and it's no surprise to you about emergency service and fires and so on. I guess one of the things that isn't kind of highlighted in the statements is some of the income. We had to show last year some income grants we received, but the expenditures until this financial year.
Yeah.
And so when you come to the discussion on your budget, you see had to increase expenditure related to grants, which we had to treat as income last financial year because they went specific in terms of the standards. And so these time variations still impact on, I guess, my perspective. They kind of present a really misleading kind of statement of how things are really going. Last year would have been a lot worse had we not had that income that we received basically in advance. And that makes sense too, because there was a bad view to, as I say, the fires and the drought and so on. We also had a double-edged sword of the additional depreciation costs. And that's as a result of new assets. You know, there were a lot of new assets, you have a lot of grants, a lot of new assets, which has led to higher depreciation. You know, so it's a high level of service available to the community in terms of assets, but it's about their source depreciation. I was, when it comes to the audit budget review, I was going to play a split end song called I See Red.
Thank you.
I did see, when I look at the long-term financial plan, I do see a sea of red at the moment, and it's something that but you know, it was a reasonable result last year given the circumstances. But you know, it does show a decline, it shows you careful. You know, only see what's happening in some other councils, Central Coast. You know, we know we're not that, but it's a slippery slope. But getting the deficit, we don't want to do that. So we need to be conscious, we need to alert, alarm, and focus on our responsibility. Terry's the new responsibility for the representatives of the Office of Local Government team, Social Council, our financial sustainability. Something we have to be mindful of. I'll say a bit more about that later. In terms of the financial statements, yes, it's the first time ever, in my experience in council, that we have had a management letter come out of the audit. You know, the points raised, thanks to the Eagle Tax team, a great work. Working papers and so on. Fantastic. But in terms of the actual position, my role focus on and very clear.
Thank you, Paul. So, just bear with me. Paul, and before I go on to questions, and I will go, you've indicated Councillor Bromwich, and I'll come to you, Councillor Murray. Because Jeff's still on the line for any questions to Jeff. I'm happy, councillors, if you wish to go to Paul. Paul, before I do, I just want to commend you and our staff for that absolute great job you do, and how important it is that you do it all the time to make us aware of what interesting position we're in before it sort of hits us like a train coming down the track. If we don't do this, we don't do that, or maybe we should do this. That's how good council should be advised. And from your department, you're all over it all the time and see things that may be coming. So it's really important that we have that information shared to us as a council to make those decisions. I'll go to you, Councillor Bromwich. A question to Paul or a question to Jeff?
Why did the asset value increase this year? Because I thought it would have increased given our renewals of bridges and and Paul said we've got extra depreciation there because of that extra asset. So I'm just wondering why on the slide did it say our assets?
Jeff, did you get that?
No, sorry, I didn't hear that. Was that a question for Paul?
No, it was a question to you. We're going to get your money, mate. Yeah, just speak up. Councillor Bromwich Petrie has a question.
You just,
Okay.
I mean, on the slide there, it said the asset value had slightly decreased this year. I thought it would have increased because of our asset renewal.
That current assets decreased slightly without actual non-current assets, which is actually property plant, not increase. So our non-current assets increased. But our total current assets decreased.
That's not what I was saying.
So the fixed assets, the property plant increased, and that's the increase in depreciation, but the current assets decreased.
Right. Thank you. I apologise, Councillor Murray. Councillor Maybe you didn't go a long time ago, so I went to her first. But over to you. Questions? Did you have what to Paul?
No, to Paul, actually, through your respect. I was just going to ask, are you addressing the quarterly budget later on in this session? Yes. Are you asking?
Any other questions, councillors? No other questions? Jeffrey, thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll sign off now and get back into our agenda, but thank you again.
Okay, well, thanks for hearing my presentation.
Thank you, all the best.
Okay.
Happy Christmas.
Okay. So, councillors, we'll get back to our agenda. We do have a morning tea with our finance staff at 10:30, so we'll stick to that. We're going pretty good. Councillor Cummings, I just want to deal with this with number 2. Is it to do with that with the amendment going to put in, or I'll go to you now?
Just that, no problem at all with the amendment.
Yep.
Proposed. I was just wondering, we did actually do a pro-mountain biking thing 2.5 odd years ago at council.
I apologise, councillor. I just didn't get what we did.
We did have a pro-mountain biking policy thing about 2.5 whatever years ago. So I was wondering why Terry said we actually don't have anything. We did put something through, and it was after the dramas that happened to do with the mountain with a motorbike thingy, and some stuff came up about mountain biking, and we did actually have something that was pro-mountain biking. But anyway, but it's not going to matter doing it again today.
Right. Okay. Councillors, what I'm asking for is moving a second for the amendment. The council commits to supporting the development of mountain biking within a territorial shire within operational constraints. Happy to move that, Councillor Bowman?
Yeah.
Second by you, Councillor Berry. All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillors, now we'll go to the officer's recommendation.
So do we vote on that then?
Well, the question to our CEO, the staff, to do with that recommendation, we've just approved the amendment, voted on that, but now becomes part of the recommendation.
So do we just vote on that separately?
We just, what do you wish to? Righto. So what are we doing, councillor?
We now vote on part 2 now that the amendment is the motion.
Yep.
We now vote on that motion of part 2 of this.
Yep. Is that the way you want to go?
I'd like to speak to the.
Yep. Councillor?
Yeah, look, I fully support it because I seconded it. I'm just a bit concerned about the insurance with these things. Unless you belong to a club, it's very difficult for an individual to actually get insurance. I don't know how we can address that at all unless we direct people to have clubs on their place. Because some people just cannot get insurance for mountain biking if careful it is, if possible.
It'd be very similar to like horse riding or something like that. Yeah. I just don't being involved in that.
Yeah, and having difficult with some of our underwriters pulling out of the country altogether. The lawyers have pulled out since the bushfires. They're one of the major insurance underwriters in the world.
Well, I know with this recent reform club that obviously they would have an incorporated body, so they would have some sort of insurance.
Yeah, that's very.
But then they're going onto a property, well, that property should have public liability.
Yeah, I just want to make people aware of
that. Fine. Right. Councillor McTisha, it's to do with what we're doing here.
Yes, last Monday's forum at the School of Arts, that question was asked.
Yep.
And when the presenter said it's under control, they have insurance organised.
Right.
They must let them, said it's not a concern.
Yep.
That was the impression I got last Monday night.
Councillor,
Sorry.
I'll go to Councillor Bromwell. Councillor Bromwell.
With insurance, if you don't be a member of a club as like an individual club, but if you are a member of Mountain Biking Association Australia as an individual, which is less than $100, you cover 20 rounds a day, 7 days a week, 5 days a year. So we can always, suggest to people, but if as a property owner, you to have someone on your place to do those activities, you have to source your insurance. Whether it is through UCAMP, which is now HIP Camp, they have $10 million public liability, but it depends on your activities, etc. Or you can go through Aon and other people to recreational leisure insurance. But it is harder because of the limitations.
Councillor, we need to tidy up, so before we got into this about insurance, we're doing number 2, we'll move to the amendment there. Now we're going to vote on that we accept number 2 as with the amendment in it. Okay, all in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. Councillor Murray, did you indicate you had a question?
No, I was going to ask a question.
Yes, by all means.
Pertaining
To do with this report?
Pertaining to number 2.
Okay.
What exactly are we committing ourselves to?
Yep, Mr. Seer.
For example, a couple of days ago, it might have even been longer than that, Councillor Murray, Angry Bull Rake was asking for a list of approvals or approval authorities they'd need. And because some of it would be on public land, that would be Crown, invested in council for management under Crown, who that is and what that entails. Others would be, if they're on private land, DAs and what that entails. A whole heap of administrative stuff, which is very, very time consuming. At a time we haven't got any time, which is why I wanted within operational constraints added. As I said before, I've never seen staff so busy, and also because it's coming to Christmas and everyone wants to have a Christmas. So, Kylie, do you want to speak further to that? More of a town planning thing.
I was going to say it's more than a market constraint. So, as the chief executive, we have a limited pool of staff. We've got a lot of same deadlines, so we're coming up with a crunch, and obviously then do take some time both from a property planning perspective, try and make sure that we give people a very good understanding in terms of undertaking.
And it's time consuming, but it's not something you can rush, because if we give someone the wrong advice and they get, another year or 2 down the track and find out that there's a native title claim, for example, over a piece of land, they can't do anything, it might bring the whole show undone. So it's not something that you can just go, yeah, it's all going to be fine. Well, it's something that our new property officer Neville will have to spend time on, and something that our town planner will have to spend time on, and something that economic development, myself, chief corporate officer will have to spend time on. And at the moment, even though tacitly we've got sort of a mandate, I think, although I can't remember it, about supporting mountain bikes, this firms that up. Without that, there's nothing about mountain bikes in the operational plan. There's lots of things in the operational plan about tourism and economic development, but nothing very specific.
Yep.
That would add something new.
So we don't have to spell out the necessary constraints. Is that correct?
Well, within operational constraints, which basically means within the time of day, how much time we've got to spend on this, because we've got there's heaps of different clubs and associations all asking us very similar questions at the moment, because everyone's got the same grant deadlines. Sure. It's not only Angry Bull, everything from, everything from arts events to physical infrastructure. We've got Arts Northwest, we've got the other National Monument, you name it, we've got people asking us questions at the moment because everyone wants to put in an application for a grant.
Yep.
The demand of this place. Some of the grant rush, but at the moment, which adds to our operational constraints to try and get that information back. So the amount of grants that we've got in the you can double that externally.
receive the information.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Mr. C. Councillor Murray, is that your question? It's a very relevant question. Yeah. Councillors, any other questions to do with the report? Okay. The report's there, councillors? All in? Yeah. Yeah, we're doing number one. We're going to go to a very important meeting in the bottom corner there, Mr. Paul Dell. You wish to speak, Mr. Dell?
Just go number one.
Yes.
Obviously, there's no money.
Yep.
Programs, assets, reviewing those, anything to do, just going to have to cost them to pay those, and as a sort of I'm not projecting.
Yep. Things like this. Yep. Councillor Bronwyn, did you wish to speak to someone? I apologise, I thought you indicated.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask with regard to part one. I think there should be a word change. I want to propose the matter. Consider the allocation of $30,000 for a mountain bike trail design as per council resolution. Because it's, the feasibility study was part of the business case. I think call wording back when we got the original proposal.
Yep.
I'm just proposing it should be for a mountain bike trail, for mountain bike trail design.
Yep.
The other thing with regard to finance, I just wanted to ask Paul, given that this was part of the budgeting resolution, and if you're saying there is no money available, knowing that this was coming up, was there therefore no money
There was no
paid for? But my follow-up question then would be, we know the high level of engagement, how people responded within 24 hours to 170,000 people just on one Facebook that before this happening, which is unheard of. And as with the survey responses, where Dave Thompson was only expecting 100 survey responses, 3,800 or 3,900 responses, which is unheard of.
Yep.
So we are positioned uniquely within a large population catchment and then into New South Wales. If this project were to go ahead, what positive impact would that have on our budget? Like you're saying that, we've got grants, we rely on grants now. The projects such as this, which will result in a lot more visitors, more businesses, they're liable to do more rates, more income. What, rather than being a negative, what is actually the positive as far as our council income that this project would involve?
Nor can
No,
I.
I just thought, projects such as this, as far as council income goes, how do we?
Councillor, what I'll do, we're going to tidy up, you've flagged an amendment, right, to number one. So consider the allocation of $30,000 for a mountain bike trail design. Yes?
Or people mountain bike trails.
Right. Mr. Sayed, before we go further, comment?
It's either got to be a yay or no not to consider, because we're actually considering now until we actually have the resolution, and then the resolution's either to do it or not to do it.
Sorry, it should have been allocate whatever amount for mountain bike trail design. Should be, yeah.
Right, so this is in the same amendment.
Yes, it should be allocated.
So allocate. $30,000 for the Angry Bulls, is it?
Yeah.
Yes. Mountain bike trail design.
The only other issue about the funding is I'll take your advice, the quote that gotten from Bernard is actually 39,545, 5,700 that
Councillor, I'll just stop you. With respect, we're dealing with the amendment. So you've moved this amendment, Councillor Sawyer has seconded the amendment. Okay? Now I'm gonna ask for speakers for and against. Okay? And then we'll come back for closing comment. And you can do all that, so just cool your powder just for a moment, as we go on. Righto, councillors, we have an amendment. Changing number one from allocate $30,000 for Angry Bull Mountain Bike Trail design as per council resolution, which is resolution 116/20, item B, from a previous business plan. Okay? So I'm taking Mr. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sawyer, being the second, did you wish to speak to the amendment?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I entirely take on board our accountant financial manager Paul's comments about proceeding with caution and not spending money unwisely. I think this $30,000 is going to be wisely spent, and I just hope that we can find ways and means during the budget adjustment period over the next 9 months or whatever we've got left of the year to find this 30,000. I think if we go ahead and don't allocate this 30,000, we risk this whole project falling apart, and it's too big a project for the future of this area. So I fully support the allocation of 30. I know they were quietly asking for 60. We can't afford 60. I'm prepared to back them with 30.
Thank you, Councillor. The mover and second speaking for the amendment, speakers against. Councillor Berry.
I think it's a great project. I have difficulty in giving the $30,000, given our budget position, and given the fact I think we could spend another so on 5,000 maybe. So the 65,000 that's going to affect our budget. And if trend keeps continuing, they're going to have another special rate variation. And the way I see it, I cannot see too many growers at the moment with drought wanting to support another rate variation to support something like Angry. So that's my position on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Those speaking against the amendment, I'll go to you, Councillor Portray.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification before I say what
Yes.
I say. What we're talking about now is just the amendment as by Councillor.
Yes. We'll do that way, Councillor, and then we'll put up the recommendation as a whole.
Well, as the mover of the original recommendation, I'm against it. For a couple of reasons, but the main one is the original recommendation is to consider allocation of $30,000 for a feasibility study. Now we're seeing the 30. Concerned about this word feasibility study. That encompasses a lot of things, and trail mapping is just one of them. We've got an organisation who are on the radar called Angry Bull Trails, a non-profit organisation. They've done a lot of work, as you can see, and I think we're, by doing this, and by what Councillor Bronwyn is suggesting, we're starting to stick our nose into what's really their business and telling them how to do what they're going to be doing. And I think we've got to show support. And because one of the very first things they do is part of the feasibility study. My understanding is they come up with the required route, they map trails, they confer with all the stakeholders, landowners, etc., and they'll do that until they run out of the $30,000. But in the meantime, the clock is ticking down, and that's the real problem. And we need to let them get on, start mapping the trails, start doing whatever they need to do, and put it all together, and they'll call it their feasibility study. So I think we just read that one as it is.
But they'll take that as a vote against the amendment. We're dealing with the amendment. Okay, Councillor, now we'll go to finish this up, and we're not squashing debate or anything. We have got a bit on. Councillor Sawyer, did you wish to be the second to speak again before I go to Councillor Bronwyn? Councillor Bronwyn, being moved with the amendment, I'll go to you closing comment, please.
Yeah, well, I never actually spoke for it, I just wrote that, but so it's speaking for it and in closing. I have spoken with both Joe Smith and Vince Sherry as late as last Monday when they were doing it, and spoken previously about this money they're chasing, which is actually 39,500, is to do the trail master design as per this Jerdard attachment before you do things. That is what they want this money for, is to actually do this. Within that though, because this was prepared prior to the completion of the business case, there are some components in that that have already been completed in the business case. And if you look at the survey that's put out by Regional Development Australia, it actually refers to it as the feasibility study. So we know it's feasible, that's already been achieved. This is about purely and solely getting money to do this master plan, which involves the design, site inspection, trail concept design, having the meetings, etc., developing the master plan and final trail master plan development, and includes the travel costs. That's what that's what we're considering today is the trail master plan. Not a feasibility study because they've already done it. And it was just unfortunately poor wording that they had cut and pasted from another project. So they are very happy to, and I spoke to Joe this morning about this actual amendment, and he was fine. He said it has to be the mountain bike trail design. They were his words this morning, mountain bike trail design.
Excuse me, Councillor Ryder, we're going to put this amendment now, and it reads, Council allocate 30,000 for Angry Mountain Bike Trail Design as per Council Resolution 116/25. All in favour of the amendment? Against? The amendment's up. Okay. So now we'll put the whole recommendation. All in favour?
The whole recommendation, you mean, number one?
No.
No, the whole recommendation.
I apologise, you are right, I need to go back. We've approved the amendment of number one, we've amended number one, okay? So now we're going to put 1 and 2 up.
It's already been voted.
No,
I'm sorry, number one,
yeah, we have to vote on number one.
yes, well, now we're going to vote on number one, Councillor. So the amendment's up, okay, so as amended, that's been voted on, and now we're going to put it up. Okay, all in favour of number one? Against? Apologise, councillor.
Point of order, Mr.
Yeah.
We should be speaking for and against that.
Yeah.
Right, then we'll do that. I apologise. Because I thought we'd already had enough debate. But anyway, so that's up. Right up. So now the amendment's been accepted. Would someone like to speak for the amendment? Yes, Councillor Brook.
I'll now speak to the resolution.
Yes.
Which is, I think if this gets up, we've already all what we're facing in the future. We know we are an agriculture-based shire, and we know that the past we've seen how poor that can be. This does provide more business to the area, more investment in the area, more businesses, new businesses, more employment, ongoing employment, not just fly by night, get money for a grant, do a project, and then that work's finished. This is, I came from Western Queensland, so the moment I stepped foot here, I knew what was here because I saw it from new eyes. And even though that's the dark ages 35 years ago, it is an amazing place within a very close area of large populations, and not just local people who do mountain biking, but the people from away. No idea that these people will travel, and we've had that shown with the response to the surveys, the response to the comments within, as I say, 24 hours, 170,000 people pro this happening. It is an immense opportunity for this area to future-proof itself. For the sake of $30,000, I would absolutely think this, especially when you compare it. Last week we had a thing for $250,000 for a playground at Jennings for 9 or 10 kids. $30,000 that could have ongoing employment, of potentially hundreds of people and lots of kids that would then allow us to get other facilities into construction for kids right across the shire. It doesn't just happen to tend to do it. This will grow satellite areas throughout the shire for our farmers to diversify, our other landowners and our other communities. So I think it is have some vision, I would suggest, and a massive opportunity.
Thank you, councillor. Speakers against? Councillor Murray, I'll go to you first, if you come back to you, councillor Perry.
Thank you, Pete, don't forget me, mate.
Apologise, councillor Peters, you're in there too.
Thank you.
I'm looking down a long way at you, councillor, I apologise. Councillor Murray, you're speaking against the amendment.
I'm speaking against the amendment. This is a little bit long-winded, and I will want it in the minutes.
You have 3 minutes.
And I will want it in the minutes. And I will give the scribe a copy of it.
Well, so you want to table this?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know if that's a problem. Can I have someone nice in Mr. C? I don't think so.
Wasn't brought up in tabling the documents earlier.
Yeah, but anyway, but present your
Okay.
case.
Today I am voting no to the allocation of community and trusted funds to organisation known as Angry Bull Mountain Bike Tours. I outline my reasons and provide a copy of this document attached to the minutes. My role within this council is to work closely with the other elected representatives to serve the community known as Shire, ensuring careful consideration of projects that use established methods of governance and making our decisions. This is how we can best guarantee positive outcomes from the use of community funds. I have read the business case, put forward to council, and will make the following comments. Firstly, I would like to thank the Angry Bull Mountain Bike Trails organisation for choosing Tenerife Shire as a location to create a world-class mountain biking course. This is a fantastic opportunity for Tenerife, and I acknowledge the significant financial and social benefits it would bring to this community. As a concept, this is definitely something I would like to see implemented in Tenerife Shire. Before voting yes to this project, it would be amiss of me to jump in a full-hearted manner without having followed due process. Currently, we have access to a comprehensive business case. Nicely captures the intended goals of the company. What I am seeking is a business plan. It lays out the financial structure of the business, provides necessary detail to create the transparency required to determine if this is secure and best use of community funds. Benchmarking with other government bodies is clear. Having access to a business plan with hard due diligence before funding are allocated. I also recommend as a group to acknowledge that careful consideration of current policies of the Tenerife Shire have been recognised and adhered to as part of the government process, particularly the following.
What 1 minute, councillor?
Risk management, local approvals policy, internal reporting, public interest disclosures, borrowing policy. And I want to focus. It's important to acknowledge that the statement of business ethics has been considered and signed off as adhered to. It is a requirement of all voting members to be fully familiar with this document and its contents as part of the day-to-day governance of this council. In summary, I believe as an elected representative, we are yet to obtain the necessary information required to ensure that full and complete due diligence has been considered and adhered to. To ensure protection of community funds, I again state I would strongly support providing the funding and rest of this project once full due diligence has been completed. Found to be able to support the proposed project.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor, to do with your comments where you were on that table, this is recorded, you're in a public meeting.
Yes, I.
So that's done. That is, just bear with me, what to do.
Speaking for.
Okay, I'm going to take 2 against them. And Councillor Peters, you're speaking against.
Two against one.
Beg your pardon?
If you take 2 against, that closes the debate. That's just.
Who made that rule?
That's the.
Right, Councillor.
But you can make an exception.
No.
It's special.
Anyway, I'm going to go to Councillor Peters, and Councillor Peters, I do apologise, I missed you there.
I'm on that one.
Yeah, mate, you're on now. So speaking against this amendment, number 1.
Yes.
Yes.
The reason I'm against, I reckon for a start, it's a great project. And I'd like to support it from that, from my own, personal. I think it would be a great project. I think it's got great merit, but I'm not in favour of giving the money. I think they should be, looking at grants from elsewhere. Once council starts giving them money, they want more and more. As you just heard a while ago, they wanted 60 grand, not 30. I just think it's going to be ongoing all the time. It's not council job to apply ratepayers' money to a project like this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sawyer, speaking for.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am in support of it, as I spoke earlier in the amendment process. I don't proceed to give them the 60 that they may be requesting. I agree with 30. In rebuttal of Councillor Murray's comment that they haven't delivered governance and legal structure, etc., I draw his attention to attachment 2 in attachment booklet 1, pages 62 through to page 62 inclusive. You've got cash flow, you have marketing, you have regulatory approvals, you have asset management, you have risk management and mitigation strategies, you have the governance arrangements, and you have project governance and legal structure. I think they've dealt with all the issues that were required. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor. Councillor Ryder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Originally, I spoke against the amendment wording, but I'm supportive of the original allocation of the funds. So I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah, of course, Councillor, then we will go to that.
Thank you. Firstly, that I believe that the clock is ticking, so there's some time constraints to get the feasibility, i.e. the trail mapping part done. So, because when Angry Bull Trails start applying for grant funding early next year, they're going to need something to make that attractive to the fund manager, and that is that they've done at least the next stage, I believe, which is trail mapping, feasibility, and that sort of stuff. And they need funds to do that. So I believe we can show our support by allocating the funds now. It will stop this project stalling for a start, because I believe it will do that. I'm really very conscious of the financial constraints and the pending situation down the track. Mr. Dell responded out. I'm not oblivious to that, but I just believe that this in particular, given the importance to the economy as an investment in the future, it's a small investment for a large gain down the track. So that's all I've got to say. I'm absolutely supportive of helping Angry Bull with this allocation at this moment.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, Councillor, we're going to put number 1. All in favour?
Just a moment, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
Am I having this put up in the minutes as I wanted?
No.
Why not?
What you said, because it's recorded.
I'm aware it's recorded.
Councillor, with respect, what you should have done at the start of their meeting with a table of documents, and that's when it should have been tabled. That document that you got there, which you wished to, because it's out of order now, my call, because right at the start, when we go through the meeting, you got disclosure and declarations of interest, then you go down to confirming the previous minutes, and you got tabling of documents. So if you wish for that to be, you could have tabled it there. And I apologise, Councillor.
Well, I was not aware of that.
Well, it's been there, it's been an order of business for a long, long time. So for future reference, anything that you wish to be in a minute, please table them, then all the councillors get it. That's how it's always been.
Well, I'm not happy with that
Well,
situation at all.
well, that's my call, and that's how it is. There's no way in the world that can be fitted into the agenda from here on.
So because I would like to really put that in public arena.
Well, Councillor, we're going to vote on this now. We need to keep moving on. Okay. So number 1, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We're going to break for a bit of a little lunch. Can I have a motion to suspend standing orders, please? Councillor Sawyer, Councillor Berry second. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Lovely morning tea with our staff. It is important that be acknowledged with the great work they've done from our financial department, and we get such a report back with no questions, no reports is a good thing, Mr. CEO, and Bill acknowledge that. And, your time in local government, you've shared with me that you rarely see that. But that's a good thing. I think our council will do good. Council, move on in your hard copy, page 33. It's item GOB 82/20, it's a monthly operation report. Move in a second here, please. I'll go with you, Councillor Murray, thank you, seconder, and Councillor Bronwyn, did you indicate your seconding? Thank you. And I'll hand over to our
Happy to accept questions by
Mr. CEO, sorry, monthly report.
Yep.
Questions to our CEO, other stuff to do with monthly report, councillors? Councillor Bronwyn?
Yes, thank you. Probably to Fiona, I guess I'm just asking about the water use table, the fact that water use consumption has gone up as we had expected, and what that might mean to that budget costing. And I was also going to ask about the Memorial Hall here and the completion estimated date and what the facts are relating to the delays with heritage kick-off on colours, what those delays have cost the project in that time and money.
To do with the Memorial Hall, councillor?
Yes.
Right, I'll go to your first question to Fiona, yes?
Building, what day we going to get? So in terms of the completion date, we've got 2 grants that have already been allocated to the project and we've got 1 phase. The first grant is actually open. Mid next year. So as I said, we've someone for both of those grants. The new grant that we're applying for actually has a completion date of 2023, so they extended that phase 2 stream BCRA completion date. So at this point in time, as I said, we're on target to deadlines of those 2 grants, so we're not down the grant authority at this point in time. We do still have the challenge with that previously accepted of the works that council did trying to actually finalise that scope of work, both application, new grant proposed, and the finalisation of the project. So it's the point in time we start allocating the funding of that my expectation. 2021. Any other issues coming in? You see the progress made. Roofs under the seating regulation January, somewhere progressing, no real hold ups with there. Actually negotiate dates. The challenge of council ask we can get the lead funding to council to then get the issues will be if you go back and open before we That's not my understanding. I'm happy to take that one on notice. There have been interns between the grant, remembering what complicated project in terms of financing. And so what we're finding is trying to manage those risks. We need the deed sign off. We're going to get it to them first to be eligible to under that funding for those time frames. So, for example, I can't sign off on a project proposal favour of the and the colour. Can I take that one?
Thanks, Bob. Councillors, any other questions to our senior staff to do with our monthly operation report? Councillor Gary Berry, thank you.
Or with the grocery bag, that means $30,000. That's right. I'm just asking that question. So, council, yeah, I want to make sure that
Thank you, councillors. Councillors, any other questions to staff to do with the operation for our monthly report? Reports there, councillors, to receive and note. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, your next page 34 in your hard copy, GSB 83/1. Tennant Shire Annual Report. Move the second to deal with this, please. Councillor Sawyer, thank you. Second, please. Councillor Rogan, and I thank you. And I'll hand over to our CE. No. Oh, apologise. And welcome, Erica, as always. And hand over to Eric to present the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is the council to receive the annual report inclusive of the annual financial statement for the financial year ending 30 June 2020. Council must prepare a report in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, section 428. Subsection 1, within 5 months after the end of the year, the council must prepare a report, its annual report for that year, reporting as to achievement of the indicating delivery program and the effectiveness of the principal activities undertaken in achieving the objectives at which those principal activities are directed. Subsection 2, the annual report in the year in which the ordinary election of council is being held must report as to the council's achievement of the community strategic plan over the previous 4 years. As council is not conducting elections this year, the end of term for the annual report will be annual report for next. Subsection 3, an annual report must be prepared in accordance with guidelines under section 46. Subsection 4, an annual report must contain the following: A copy of the council's audited financial reports prepared in accordance with the Local Government Code of Accounting Practice and financial reporting published by the department as reinforced from time to time. B, such other information or material as the regulation guidelines under 406 may require. Subsection 5, a copy of the council's annual report must be posted on the council's website and provided to the minister and such other persons and bodies as the regulations may require. A copy of the council's annual report may be provided to the minister by notifying the minister of the appropriate URL practices on the council's website. In accordance with the Act, council staff have contributed to the development of the annual report and the audit financial statements. The annual report consists of several sections, commencing with the mayor's and chief executive expenses, followed by statistics about the Shire, our achievements over the years against the community planning elections, and statutory reporting items. I commend the report to the council.
Thanks, Erica. Councillors, any questions to do with our annual report? Councillor Bronwyn?
Thanks, Erica. I just thought it was interesting in the chief executive session, the procedures that have to take place to costs, especially staff in order to interesting how certain people could be replaced after the
We worked out right at the beginning that if you've got a team of people, for example, the water and sewer people, mainly the water filtration plant people, if one of them got sick and caused the other to get sick, we wouldn't have anyone in the water to run the water filtration plants or the sewage treatment works. So we had to make sure not only did we separate them from other people, we actually have to separate them from their own teams and make sure they have different start and finish times. They weren't in a situation where, particularly at Urbanville, since we've only got two, if both of those got sick, there wouldn't have been anyone on the Urbanville water filtration. So what Fiona did with Kyogle was we cross-trained between Kyogle Shire and Petterville Shire, so if we lost people at Urbanville, we had people on the other side of the border that could work our part and vice versa. So it was actually quite a complex logistical exercise that we had to run.
Thanks for your question, councillor. Any other questions, councillors? The Bill End report, it is a big document and put together, and I think all the staff for the outstanding work they do to do that. It's a requirement of council. We do it. Okay. All happy to receive and note and adopt. I'm sorry. Against? Council, we move on to page 37, and as always, it's to do with policies, more different, some obsolete, adopt some, but I will offer to move from page 37 to page 48 and then deal with them with the exception. So we're moving from GOV 84/20 to GOV 89/20 to adopt them and I'll move in a second to deal with them and just deal with individuals if you wish. Councillor Sawyer, thank you. Second by Councillor Forbes, and I thank you. Councillor McNish, you indicated you wish to speak about one. Do you wish to?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
Looking at policy, sorry, attachment.
Page 44.
Number 9, update fundraising store policy.
Yep.
The policy itself is fine. It's just that the two sites in the policy, one is under the scaffold of the council chambers, and the other one is 228 Warehouse, which is outside of the Netherlands Centre. The several people complain that where that is now has very little traffic. Just a bad spot. People who are wood rabbit or lucky side tickets. And I would like to see it move back down to where it originally was, which is 242 Warehouse Street, which is outside where Mitchell's Shoe School used to be. It's now Brew Plus Bar, it's called there. And have it at that site there, which captures all the traffic walking across the pedestrian crossing from the side of the road. It's only moved from there to where it is now because of complaints by a particular gentleman who had a cafe there for a short while. He said that the people in the street stalls impacted his, people going into his business. I think excuse for all your own business, that's beside the point. So I would like to move, Mr. Mayor, that we go back to 242.
Councillor, just to do with the report, what page are we on?
Start page.
So it's on the attachment.
Yeah.
On page 7 of 7.
Yep.
So it's only a few pages in.
Yep.
So that's
Okay.
Number 3 policy, objective, sorry.
Yep.
The third dot point there.
So council, we'll do it as an amendment because it is a policy that we're putting in. Let me change there, just give the. Yep. I apologise, Holly. Order, please.
So in terms of why we've recommended this policy, policy frameworks, this doesn't change. If council wasn't inclined, they wish to do that, then it would be preferable to have a notice of motion forward to allocate that particular area, which about under the policy and exhibit that. So as I said, this point in time, we have been going to exhibit this one because exactly as what by council. When we make that change, as I said, notice of motion, leave that particular area, go out to advertise it.
Thanks for that advice, Colin.
That would be for the December meeting.
I know, so we would have at least, I think, 28 days for that. So yes, so when we go out to exhibit, I think the papers actually close at the next meeting. Monday, so we would then put it out to the community. We would put it out for 28 days to send comments, and then we would bring it back to the council's adoption as they saw
when you want to put the notice of motion.
Yeah. If you were of a mind to move that way, then I will get it on exhibition for that period of time.
Thanks for your advice, guys. So Councillor McNish, you're happy to move a notice of motion that way?
Very happy to, Mr Mayor.
That'll be moved to, back to
Was it 242?
Yeah, 242, Rouse Street. Councillor Brown, you've indicated second that?
Can I just
Okay.
add to that? Because and that's the way it goes down all public.
Yes. So, being the moving councillor, I'll go to the second. If you wish to speak to the motion, councillor Brown?
Only that it's obvious when you go up the street and compare the foot traffic, between that end of the street compared to the northern end. And you can see why our charities complain that they aren't getting the traffic going past them that they used to close to that, southern, Derby crossing.
Yeah.
And so I was getting, put out.
Any speakers against? I apologise. Rowan is the second. I'm sorry. Councillor McNish has moved it. There's no motion. It's been seconded by Councillor Bromwich. She has just spoke. I'll go back to Councillor McNish for closing comment. Any speakers against the notice motion? Councillor McNish, give us the closing comment.
No, Mr Mayor.
Okay, put the motion, councillors. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Councillor McNish. Any other policies you wish to speak about, councillors? Councillor Bromwich, yes?
I had some spelling things I discussed in the council, highly, and I'm just getting issues already noted it,
Right.
rather than going through them.
Right.
The other thing though, in the local orders for keeping of animals, which is attachment 6 and attachment 4.
Yeah.
On the top of page, but it calls the cattle, got 30 metres crossed out and 10 metres. I'm just wondering what the 10. To do a separation, I don't know, that's on the fence or.
Buffer. Did you wish to speak to that, Kurt?
Very yes, Mayor, thank you. What it is once it first came about, we had a minimum of 30 metres from any dwelling. So as it was originally, the original was 30 metres within a dwelling. Now that has come to light now because a lot of blocks are getting split up smaller. That if you've got a dwelling, a paddock and a dwelling, 30 metres from this dwelling, 30 metres from that dwelling, that whole block is not really good. So we brought it back to 10 metres to the discretion of the authorised officer. Which means then, so it's 10 metres from the dwelling only, not shed. In the instance, your house on a vacant block of land, if your house is adjacent to a vacant block of land, 10 metres from your house, there's a minimum distance that livestock can come to your house. So you can still utilise most blocks within town. That the reason we brought it into it was because it was an overgrown block. If there's a livestock on it, they take grass down. I would recommend you run it to deal with it. That's why we changed it. The bottom one still states that the stallions, they go to the stallions and they're still got to be within a stable 30 metres from the dwelling.
Thanks, Joe. Councillor Naymore, Councillor Berry, yes?
Yeah, with, obviously, updated enforcement policy, updated local orders policy.
Yeah.
All those things legislated, and we just made our own rules for that. Now, they are all legislated, doesn't it? This sounds something like that.
Ah. Okay, councillors, if there's no more, all in favour, adopting, against, carried. Councillors, we move on to page 50 in your hard copy, GOB 90/20, presentation of financial statements for the end of the year, 30th of June 2020. Can I move the seconder here, please? Councillor Bob Reagan, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Tom Peters, thank you. It's my pleasure to reintroduce our Minister of Finance and Technology, Mr. Paul Dell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's yes, presentation. Quite sufficient.
Yep.
She has the this year to our financial statements, but particularly good, as colleagues alluded to, prepare the annual report within the timeframes, so that's good. I've highlighted the issue of the declining financial position. That's really forward. But, yeah, as I say, having said that, there's some outcome.
Any, and you'll have plenty of council's opportunities in the next few reports. Any questions to Paul to do with this report? No? The report's there, councillors, all happy to receive a note. In favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Next report, councillors, is on page 57. It's item GOB 91/20. Quarterly budget review statement, September 2020. Moving to second here, please. Councillor Berry, I thank you. Second by Councillor Sawyer. I thank you. And once again, hand over to the Manager of Finance and Technology, Mr. Paul Dell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you again. First today, we've obviously had the first of a no management financial statements. And this is the first time I've actually had to say that under the regulations, in accordance with the regulations, I don't believe that's actually June 2021. Under the regulations, myself as responsible accounting officer in the court budget review has to write a statement as to whether I believe council satisfactory as of June. And this is the first time I've ever basically said that I don't feel satisfactory. That's because currently a deficit plus another 30,000 early discussion. Yes, so I couldn't say that was a satisfactory position. Now, my recommendations there at council adopts the budget statement, and another requirement under the regulation is that if I say it's an unsatisfactory position, I have to propose a recommendation to address that situation. And so these recommendations added in here are that no additional operating capital outside of the recommendations in this review be approved by council unless they are offset by other savings, roads, irrigation, resheeting, the plan to reduce maintenance costs and offset there, or the grant funded. And even if they are not funded, where there will be no additional operating costs as a result of the expenditure. E.g., if capital related expenditure, it should be for replacement of assets, not for new assets. Any new assets is the additional depreciation costs, which is just going to recommendation B is part of council's new asset management and asset evaluation processes. A thorough review of depreciation to ascertain if depreciation expenditure can be reduced, and a further discussion to the state government. We're then taking back some votes from council. We're discussing the first report tonight. Today we should vote. So, as an aside, we're also looking at some of our other assets, assets, for example, currently on our asset. C is it corresponds to incentive the Australian community issue by some income in a different accounting period when the expenditure occurred. And that's really a lot of the crux of what's in this budget. Last year, but we didn't spend money last year, we spent money this year. But made last year look better. The operating makes this year look worse. And doesn't present my mind and this single action accounting and sound needs to it's an issue of late feeding, cost should be raised. It's going to get worse. And the plan B is a plan to increase operating income. And that's to increase points in the market. But the plan may include special rates for investment to return incomes operating. There's a lot of things. Swimming pools on one hand, and white trails, dam area, etc. Just open. And as much as it's great to do, and if both parties want them, that's really, I'll say right now. So yes, so as I mentioned, most adjustments for the are as a result of time. And that's what's outcomes of 1.37 operating deficit. And the other thing I should mention, for the restriction cash, like the earlier reduction in cash, that was because we covered some of the restrictions. Like to, that's mainly about occupation. Other council have less funded up front. So as the during loss of cash, and enough to restrict external restrictions, which is good. But I'm sure in fact October when gas came in, and it'll come back in December. So yes, so that's basically the extent of that. Having said that, looking at the long term major plan and new plan, I did mention before, what I see is a sea of red. Operating costs going. Now, a lot of that is once again on the outside of that, the close to recovery. Some of that money is due to this year. It could well be reinstated to high levels, we don't know yet, but if it's not, it's 520,000 more. The bank tag, and this year is only, next year is only 50%, which is far more. So, yeah, something that we need to really go look at. But as I say, this year, it's stage and plus the
Before, sorry, councillors, before I do, I'll go to SAE for some comment, then I'll come to councillors. Mr. Seer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is some news that should be heralded though, and that's in relation to the figures are the figures, and what our Chief Financial Officer has said is 100% accurate, and I'm 100% behind. And I want everyone to understand that. The good news is though, that we're in a far better place now than what we were only a couple of years ago in relation to the assets on the ground's condition. Council may remember in June 2018, we had a meeting, we had four meetings actually around the community about how we're going to tell people they couldn't use their bridges because we had 16 bridges with labelling on them. That's but a memory now. By Christmas, 29, by Christmas we'll have 29 bridges done in 22 months, which is about 1 day faster per bridge than what Kyogle is doing, which I'm very happy about because Graham and Ken and I always hassle each other about that. And who would have thought a year ago that we'd be sealing 43 kilometres of road in 7 months? As a matter of fact, the most I've ever seen in 1 year in a local government, which was about 10 times bigger than this, was 29 kilometres on one road in 1 year. And we all thought that was pretty good actually. And who would have thought that in 3 years we would have done the dam wall, an emergency water supply, and by that stage we'll have the water filtration plant done, and 100% of the water filtration plant paid for what's on it. So although our cash position is worsening, it could be heaps worse because we could be in a situation where we still had 16 load limits on the bridges and we still nothing, and we still had a 91-year-old water filtration plant. And we still didn't have the hall extended, which is going to allow 400 people to sit here as a mini conference centre, and we wouldn't have other buildings fixed up around the Shire and new ones as well. So, as I said, I'm 100% behind Paul. We will need an SRV because I don't think the public are going to like stuff taken off them. We've seen that with the band hall, we've seen it with the pool. As soon as you put something in, it's a lot harder to take it out than what it is to rebuild it or renew it. So it's a worsening position. It's mathematically inevitable because the amount of cost shifting we get each year for the last 30 years has been more than what our income is. So eventually it's going to get to the stage where there needs to be a reset. But by Christmas 2021, we should have 48 bridges done based on our current estimations. And I might get Fiona to expand that if I'm wrong. If I'm not, I'll shut up.
Well, it won't be full replacement, but they'll be rehabilitated or they'll have at least a 25 year life.
Yeah. So the bridges are our most expensive asset, and to knock 80% of them over inside a 3-year period is really commendable, something that I've never seen done. I used to think building 2 bridges a year was pretty shit hot, but 29 in 2 years is unbelievable. So we do definitely need to listen intently to our advice from our CFO and watch that really, really carefully. We need to be also happy, on the other hand, that the assets have been fixed up and we're in a much better place than we were.
Thank you, Mr. Sayed. I'll go to you, Councillor Berry, to question either to Paul to do with the report. Councillor, please indicate if you have questions to do with the report. Thank you, Councillor Rowan, Councillor Gish. Councillor Berry.
Question. Allow that one to see, one to talk about, and one to Paul. Paul, with the
That's 3, Councillor. Not a couple.
couple of questions and one comment.
Righto. All
How much will handing back to the road, all the way to the significant impact?
Certainly will, and that on page 28, Bruxville, for example, you've got a depreciation of 485,000, depreciation of 485,500 dollars, and then you vote that by hand back to that's just on depreciation. Not yet. Make it about maintenance. That's all. Yes, it's in the account. So,
with the 40 extra economy, we've got an extra 800,000.
3, Mr. Mayor, yes, but it's the criteria for the grant, as I understand it, Fiona, can you correct me, hasn't been worked out yet. The extra 836,000 or
69.
Yeah, 869 pension.
And the third one, just comment on item D, that the budget cost sheet is a good article, but it LGR review that through yesterday.
Councillor Rogan, you have a question?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Paul, you know, given that our asset base is looking a lot better, a lot of stuff is fairly new here. So, we've provided for hopefully many years now. We've obviously, we're talking about our set of revenue, obviously we've done some projections, so you know what the figures to expect. So, therefore, I have one question. Variation. Just to the other circles.
I haven't got that detail with you.
Councillor Dish, you had a question to do with the report?
I wanted to just all over the place here, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Well, a lot of it, ever since you've been here, every second word you say appreciation.
Yes.
Now, I know it's an accounting term, but it's not real money. Like, now, you say, okay, we'll appreciate the books away by 500,000. It's a road which will never be sold, like council road, Lions Gate Road. It will never be sold. Can't you appreciate by the very, very minimum every year? Because it's not something that can be realised, or is there a set formula for appreciation of assets like that?
It's a really good point, councillor, I think.
Certainly appreciation is expense.
But it doesn't cost us anything. They pay it very, very minimum.
So depreciation is the allocation of capital outlay of an asset over its useful life. So, yeah, so it isn't too expensive. It's not a cash expense, though.
Because your application too.
Depreciation, cash item, any factor. The budget, add back depreciation to see what is really available. Capital. First. But under the Australian accounting standards, you know, depreciate its assets and expense, and under the guidelines from OLG and
What's the formula?
So it depends on what the use of
This is why we need an asset system, because being at school, we appreciate the bottom of the road, so the earthworks and the formations and the gravel and the seals and so on. The seal might have been, and that's why we use that formula to get us to behind the overview of what depreciation is costing, trying to pick those assets.
I know you've got a notice of accounting thing, but it just seems to give a false impression of what actually
yeah, so depreciation is an expense. It's treated like any other expense. Yeah, depending on the type of road.
With the government, they contract point, appreciate 100%. Does that apply to local government?
No, because council don't pay tax like private organisations, private companies, so we don't get tax rates for depreciation or anything like that. Depreciation and tax are different to.
There is another thing, Paul. Ron and I spoke about this yesterday. Just an example is the roof on the Great Hall. Just down to the replacement. It's next year, right? 40 years. Now, to me, it's not. Now, both those laws are not a problem with those groups at all. And maybe there's a lot of stuff that we do, I'm saying, that may not be doing. I mean, okay, you know, iron masks. So therefore, just replace it. There's probably a lot of savings to be had by looking.
And that's why one of the comments that you about reviewing action assets and what we previous year, sorry, is implementing a new asset management asset. Part of that, extremely closely.
Councillors, I'll just go to a CE for a comment and go back to you, Councillor Rogan, then you, Councillor Sawyer. Mr. CE.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Paul said about reviewing the depreciation with asset system called Asset Finder. Through a very simple idea, and it was all our Director of Garner's idea, and doing a little bit of lateral thinking, we were able to seal 43 k's of road, which we wouldn't have been able to do. And this is during a time that's been a bit tricky from a financial point of view, because we've added 3 different funds together and put 3 different tasks together. We're able, instead of maintenance grading, resheeting, or sealing the road, we put 3 lots of funds together to finish that road once and for all and then go away, and using a different type of seal on some of the roads as well. And we're actually going to save money on mobilisation and demobilisation costs, because the roads we've picked are either problematic from a bus route, problematic from the cost of going there just to do 100 metres of road or half a kilometre of road. Some of the instances, the cost of moving is more than the cost of grading. Now, a lot of the things we're doing and a lot of the technologies that we're adopting is that our unit rates, or not really our unit rates, but the length of the life of the asset's actually being extended. But when we make the decision about the asset management plan today, it's based on the technology that's available for today, not what we might be doing in 10 years' time that could work out better. And a classic example of this is the water filtration industry. 50 years ago, or even only 30 years ago, the technology that they were using to filter water was 3 times more expensive than what it is per unit rate today. But the amount of people using the water is going up and the quality standards have changed. So we're building a plant today that if you tried to put that technology in 50 years ago, it would have cost you $100 million. That's going to cost us $10 million. So it's really, really difficult. It's the same with roads and bridges. Ben Meir has come up with some really, really wonderful ideas to lengthen the life of our assets. But when you just get a carte blanche way and go, right, we've got 58 bridges, it's $7,000 a square metre, this is how many metres a deck we've got, it's $2 billion, we'll never afford it. The bridge on Sunnyside Loop Road, and Fiona, can you talk about how we strengthen the girders on that to save replacing that bridge with the sinews that Ben put on?
The fibre,
yeah.
Fibre reinforcement. Ben had his presentation at council explaining how he just did a small run of fibre that is run along the bottom of the girders or the piles are wrapped, etc. And they put soft rock to extract moisture out of the girders. So for a very minimal cost, instead of going out at $7,000 a square metre and replacing all that with concrete, which is wonderful. But we, 100 years time, we're going to be, trying to replace those assets. We try to extend the life, spend a minimal amount, but spread out our asset replacement over the next 100 years.
So, through Mr. Mayor, I apologise, but this is really important. One of the fundamental things with asset management is allowing the staff to have the initiative to try new things and not just doing what you did yesterday because of what you did yesterday. And Ben Mee is probably a classic example. This one of our bridges is coming from Canada or America? Canada. One of our bridges were mainly because we can't open and close the road for a long period of time because we can't put a sidetrack in. One of our bridges will be built in a day. It's coming from Canada and it'll be basically bridge out, new bridge in, bridge out, because it was a bespoke design for that location. So all of these things we're doing, like the polycom that we're putting in our unsealed roads now, which means we've got to go back less, like the and I call them sinews, because everyone knows what a sinew is, but not many people know what fiberglass girder reinforcement is. All of these little things, they don't sound much, but they're why we're going to have 29 bridges done by Christmas instead of about 6. That's got to help. And the trouble is, it's a bit like laws. When you introduce new technology, the laws take 5 years to take up. When you introduce new ways of changing unit rates for asset management, the asset management system takes 5 years to catch up. And that's got to be played off against the consumption might be going up in other areas, might be due to population changes or weather changes. So I asked council to listen intently to what our Chief Financial Officer has said, but to understand it's a moving piece and it's going to change every time technology changes, every time something else changes. We're going to have to change with it and just stay on top of it the best we can. And compared to other areas, we're doing all right, particularly with the fact that we're addressing what was the problem with our assets, not pretending, not being in denial that they're all okay. And I say that with all sincerity. I've worked in shires where we didn't do the inspections because we knew what we'd find, and if we knew what we'd find, we'd go broke. And our assets, because our ratios have changed, and we didn't want that because we didn't want to do an SRB. And that's put your head in the bucket of sand. That doesn't work for very long, but sooner or later things start falling bits. The ostrich theory, yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor. So, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sir. No, it's really important. I'll go to you, Councillor Rogan, and Councillor Sawyer, then you, Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, but my question was going to be about the depreciation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sawyer.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's more a comment than a question. At the New South Wales Local Government Conference done by Zoom on Monday, one of the motions that was passed was for the New South Wales Local Government Association to advocate to funding bodies to find some dollars to replace those dying pools that we've all got for memorial tours. That doesn't mean the funding's coming, it means that argument and discussion is starting.
And just on that point, go to you, Councillor Brown. I do publicly thank you, Councillor Sawyer. On very late notice, I couldn't attend that. Councillor Sawyer, as a deputy mayor, was a voting delegate for the day, so I do thank you. Councillor Bromwich, question to the report?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Look, I think it's really important we can get rid of that distortion, grant funding, timing, and deal with the depreciation, and really appreciate how our staff are working smarter and more efficiently on things like bridges. So I had thought that we used to pay $7,000 a square metre for bridges, but that we reduced it down to around 2.5 once we're in the total. But anyway, my question is in relation to A. The concern is it says no additional operating capital expenditure unless we offset the same as the second. What happens if we were to get a catastrophic failure? Say we did get close by the end of the and we ended up with landslide or bridges washing away. What about if we had something like earlier this year where our staff were building those plastic separators, which was not something that we planned for, or roads like McLeod's where we had to come up with $60,000 or $68,000 to deal with that issue, or the land at Drake that had been probably transferred 10 years ago, or if we get an overrun in something. If we vote for the word no additional operating, I'm happy to support limit additional operating with the intent that the be nothing extra unless it is offset, but it has to allow for, unforeseen circumstances. We lock ourselves into that thing there. Something fell off, the wheels fell off somewhere. Or there is an overrun. There's many times we've had to vote, I know there's a big profit to vote next to 300,000. We've got else getting extended.
I'll come back to you.
So can we just
Well, come back to with the and all relevant, with the items that you've mentioned. All those had come to council before there was a decision made on it, which you've just mentioned. So that's appropriate that it does happen. But you have raised a good point, and you're quite entitled to look at that and move an amendment, as you will, to change that. Paul, I'll go to Paul first.
That's really just yes, I understand. And we pointed out, nothing to stop going to a future budget situation to do that. Do something. Like I said, and where's the money coming from? There's the saving coming. That's just the one.
Councillor, any other questions? To do with the report, Councillor, to do with A, did you wish to do something there or just want to leave it as?
No, we can't leave it as because it actually says no additional operating expenditure, blah, 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 be approved by council. So to me, be approved by council says that even if it comes to us for a resolution, we can't do it if we agree to A with the word no. Unless we add some words at the end that say unless due to unforeseen or critical failure, I don't know what the words are. We have to have an out clause there for something.
Yeah, Kylie, by all means.
Every resolution adopted, when you actually pass the next resolution, spend money, you'll actually see that resolution. So council, so the next time you resolve to spend money, you will have already. I can't hold you to your own resolutions back then, we said, oh, we're not going to next. But that's very good, so we keep it all in front of our mind. We get it to D, whatever that is, that's the latest resolution of council. But fees and charge. Every year, just resolve fees and charges. Last year, resolve next. The new one, so on and so.
One, to me, you're acting contrary to the.
Councillor Sawyer.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification. It's a statement that Paul's obliged to issue. Clearly says to that end, I recommend that. Yep. In voting to accept item GOB 91/20, we're only accepting those statements as such, and we're not actually committing us to no increases in the future. We will deal with those on a case-by-case basis as they happen. If we accept this resolution today, all we're doing is moving forward as part of the process. We're not locking ourselves into anything.
Okay, we'll move on before I ask for both councillors, but just a comment to the end. Paul, thank you for your honesty in the report. I think it's a really, really good report. You've addressed it in and presented it in a way that we all can understand. I'm certainly no manager of finance or anything, but it's always a good read. I did want to make some comment about, without making a big issue of it, on page 60, to do with the top paragraph there, where monthly operation report such as a plan may, really important word, include a special rates variation. It's a really big thing that council are always made aware of our financial position and things we may need to do into the future. I look forward to having that conversation in the new year, so we'll make it done this year. When we went down that road in the previous council, it was something I didn't even know what a special rates variation was. I really mean that. I'm not embarrassed to admit that either. We never dealt with it before. But it was presented by our staff of the day in a way that we can understand, and it united the council of that day, not that we weren't united. The debate was in the chamber, the reports were presented, and then the different formats were presented to us, because I think, from memory, Councillor Berry might have chosen the medium one. I can't remember, was it 15 and 3 lots of 10?
Yeah.
But there was a softer one and a harder one, and I look forward to at least looking at that's there, so as a council we can, know that that's there, and if we went down that road, I know over that 4-year period that raised $10 million and all spent on infrastructure and got us out of a huge hole. It wasn't the easiest thing to sell, but one thing I made clear to the councillors on the day, once we could make a decision in the chamber to go down that road, that we all went out and sold as a united group, because we had to, because we were in a world of hurt. But I just need to share that with you. But I do really appreciate the report and your honesty. Thank you. Councillors, all in favour of adopting the report? Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 72. GOV's 92/20 finance accounts period ended the 31st of October 2020. Moving the second here, please. Councillor Berry, thank you. Second to Councillor Sawyer. Paul, did you wish to speak to this?
It's really just to make if I can update on the sale of land.
Yes, that'd be great.
As you know, the auction was held last sale of land. The total amount that was outstanding as properties for sale. 67%. And once again, reasonably high, and I thought that amount was owed council. As a result of both the auction and by the auction where people have paid council has now collected 220,000 cents out of the 200,000. There's one property that was passed in the auction, so it's a as I say, with the property that we're up for auction, so it's asking.
Thanks, Paul, for that report. Councillor Berry, you've indicated you wish to.
Yeah.
A question, Paul?
Yeah, all the sale of property, we've got jumping phase. That one property we can go for some of the property sale around.
Most sold.
Councillor Gorman? I apologise, I can't. Yep. Paul?
Council's purchase 2 blocks. 8,000.
Thank you. Right, councillors, the report's there to receive a note. All in favour? Against? Carried. Move on to page 75 in your hard copy. Item GOV 93/20, government expenditure report as of 31st of October 2020. Moving the second to here, please. Councillor Berry, thank you. Second, Councillor Murray. Paul, any comment to do with this report? Any questions for Paul to do with this report? Or happy to receive a note? Against? Barry? Councillors, that's the end of our reports, open reports to do with environment. Move on to reports from delegates and committees. Page 77 in your hard copy. RC 28/20 to report from the country mayor's meeting held on the 6th of November in Sydney, which Sue and I attended. And being the delegate for that, I'm happy to move that way. Got a second, please. Councillor Sawyer, thank you. Any questions to do with the report, councillors? Councillor Bromwell, yes? Yeah, you did, councillor. We had to do with the RS.
Yes. It was to do with the RFS assets being on council's books.
Yes.
Mainly because, like we've done in New South Wales, we had a couple of attempts and it's still on their policy to advocate for it. But I think they've started to spin their wheels, so we tried a different association to see if we can get a second association to attack the government from a different angle.
Yeah. Just to get some consistency there, because there's none, councillor. All councils tend to deal with this in different ways. It's quite a dog's breakfast. So it is.
But when was the fire one come up? The national.
That went to the, is that motion you mean? To do with culture burning?
That was
it?
passed without discussion.
Yes. Both of those early motions were.
No discussion, accepted.
In the past, you want to, councillor Berry? Do the rest of it, you could have no reserve. Councillor, just to share with you, there was the AGM to do with the country mayors. Mayor Katrina Humphries-Kamori has stood down after doing a wonderful job and been replaced by Councillor Ken Keith from Parks. Councillor Keith will do an outstanding job. He's a very experienced operator and already on the ball, and we're having a Zoom meeting next week. I was honoured to be elected onto the executive again, which is a great honour, and I represent this area through the country mayors, and it's a good group, and I know that our CEO agrees with me with that. Councillor Berry.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? No? Happy to receive a note to report, councillors? All in favour? Again? Carried. Thank you. 89, page 89, your hard copies. Item RES 10/20, council resolution register. Move to second here, please. Councillor Berry again, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Rogan, thank you. And I'll hand over to our CEO.
Happy to accept questions by exception, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions to our CEO to do with that? Councillor Bromwell, yes? CEO, or all five?
We don't have anything more to discuss.
Thanks, Hop. Councillors, that's the end of our public meeting. Can I remove in a second, please, to go to confidential? Oh, sorry. I apologise, Nolly. No, I would move it, sorry, we've got to move in a second to deal with it. All in favour to note the resolution register, that report, please. All in favour? Yes, carried. You did move in a second. Righto. Can I get a motion to move in the confidential, please? Councillor Berry, thank you again. Second by Councillor Sawyer. So, councillors, what we'll do.
Sorry, fast forward 2 weeks,
We'll get it out of
As always, with the meeting procedure, councillors coming out of confidential, the recommendations are public. To do with item GOB 94/20, the officer recommendation, council receives and notes to report, Chief Corporate Officer, renewal of appointment. Then we go to item EC 017/20, offer to purchase lot 12, Tenterville Industrial Estate. The officer's recommendation, the council agreed to proceed with the sale of lot 12 of the Tenterville Industrial Estate as stated in the report. To do with item EC 019/20, tender for bridge replacement, Kangaroo Creek. Officer's recommendation, the council accept the tender of Oswide Bridge Civil and Rail Limited for the design and construction of the bridge on Paddy's Flat Road North over Kangaroo Creek for an amount of $830,150 and $150 including provisions 1 and 2 as outlined in this report. Item EC 020/20, tender for replacement of Deepwater River Bridge. The officer's recommendation, the council accept the tender of Oswald Bridge Civil and Rail Limited for the design and construction of bridge from Torrington Road over Deepwater River for an amount of $749,000 as outlined in the report. Then on to the addendum item, still in the confidential, with item EC 021/20, offer to purchase lot 5 and 6, Tenterfield Industrial Estate. The officer's recommendation that council with 1 agree to proceed with the sale of lots 5 and 6 of the Tenterfield Industrial Estate as stated in the report. And to do with item EC 022/20, offer the purchase lot 8, Tenterfield Industrial Estate. The officer's recommendation that council agree to proceed with the sale of lot 8 of the Tenterfield Industrial Estate as stated in the report. Council, that brings our meeting to an end. I thank you all very much. It's been a long day, a good day. We've been cooperative, great debate, and the meeting is ended. Peace and harmony. I wish you well.
And congratulations, we've just sold 4 blocks of land in industrial estate.
I didn't have to pay an agent for one of them.
And one a couple of weeks ago, so I was wondering, should we actually have a press release saying that?
Yes, we should actually, we will.
Yeah.
And would you mention also the number of new